wanted to document my first trip to the Solent for a downwinder, and also do a little bit of a spot guide. So this is Tanner's Lane, which is a car park just to the east of Lymington. It's quite a kind of narrow country lane, and it was full of windsurfers and a couple of wingers the day I was there, so it was quite a busy car park, but you know, enough space hopefully when you're there. And the Solent is essentially, you know, as far as I can tell, it's going to be the closest option to something like Hood River that we have in the UK. So it was a wind against tide situation, and this was quite a windy day. It was definitely blowing 25 knots. And I set off at Portsmouth high tide, which meant the tide was running against me the whole time, creating some really nice bumps, as you'll kind of see in the video. As you'll have seen at the start, I just paddled out kind of a couple of 100 metres to get clear of the kind of marshlands and the slightly shallower areas. Once you're past that, it's deep enough just to get going and head downwind. Gear-wise, I'm on an Armstrong MA 1750, a high-performance 795 mast and the 7.2 downwind board. I've got an impact vest with me, a PLB, and my Apple Watch to kind of use as a mobile phone. So, you know, I felt pretty safe out there, and it's actually nice not kind of being in the ocean where, you know, you've got potential shore dump or big waves hitting you. It's all quite consistent here, and really no hazards. You're not crossing any channels, you're not going into any shipping lanes, as long as you don't kind of keep heading towards the Isle of Wight. As long as you stay on this side of the Solent, I can't really see how you'd have any issues. And then as you head down towards Lepe, there is a river entrance into Bewley, and the water was doing some funny things there. It's a small river, so there's never going to be any big boats heading in there, but certainly the bumps kind of lost their quality. So what you'll want to do is try and stay wide and then cut into Lepe at the very last moment, which is something I kind of missed doing, and I ended up with some kind of small bumps and having to go max effort to get myself back up on foil for that last section, but still doable. When you get down to Lepe, which is where you'll have hopefully dropped your car at the start of the day, or your van, it's a nice visitors centre. There's a cafe there and toilets, and even a rigging area for windsurfers or for you to put your board on to de-rig. So, you know, simple place to land, and as I said, there's no real shore dump. It's just that at low tide it can be shallow, so if you're towards the end of the tide, you do run the risk of running aground when you arrive, so just be aware of that as you come in and try and look out for the sandbars. In terms of the bumps themselves and the conditions you'll find on the way downwind, certainly for me that's been the easiest conditions that I've found. You know, firstly in terms of getting up onto foil, you know, they're nice and steep and have kind of a good trough in front of you to be able to drop into, but without feeling like you're going to hit the next one. So, you know, so that was pretty consistent getting up onto foil, certainly for the first 3 quarters. And then once you're going, I had some really kind of wide lines to choose from. You know, if I felt like I was outrunning one, I could head over to the one in front of it, and I could also cut back and get onto the bumps behind. You know, the foil I had that does deal with speed quite well, but you'd definitely be fine on a faster foil. I did another run later on the HA 1180, and that was suited to it really well. So it should be pretty versatile in terms of the types of foil that you could take on it. I'll add a link in the description to my Strava so you can have a look at the route. I think in total it was just over 10k, and took me about an hour with a bit of, you know, faffing time paddling out and then on the way into the beach as well. The only thing that's a bit frustrating with this one is the drive. You have to go round the Bewley River, so it's you know, it's a good half-hour drive to get up to Tanner's Lane to launch, but as I said before, I think it's well worth it. Final thing to note is that you can extend this run by starting from Hurst Castle. I did it about 2 weeks after this, and although it was an awesome experience, it was a proper mission. I had some really kind of gusty wind, which I suppose was just unlucky, but it took me 2.5 hours to make it all the way to Lepe, and was 18 kilometres, so definitely more of a mission. And you also cross the Isle of Wight ferry that goes from Lymington over to the island, so just something to be aware of, but definitely worth a go if you're looking for something longer. I think you just need to make sure you get the right wind. I think that kind of southwest to westerly wind is what you're looking for. I had a bit more south in it when I did that run, and that made it a lot harder for sure. Final thing to note in this video is actually a westerly wind, and I get the impression that is the best direction. So if you can get a southwest to west but closer to west, it seems to be ideal. It just means the wind's completely on your back and you're not having to cut out at all. It's just taking you the whole way there, so keep an eye out for that when you're looking at the forecast. Cheers.